The studio lights blazed with a harsh glare, the camera zooming in as the debate raged on. On one side stood Donald Trump, larger than life, his voice booming with characteristic bravado. He leaned into the microphone with a grin, eyes sharp with challenge. "I've got a proposition for Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett," he said, voice dripping with mockery. "Let's settle this once and for all. An IQ duel right here, right now. Let's see who really knows what they're talking about." His tone was daring, dismissive, filled with the kind of raw confidence that had rallied millions. The crowd's murmur swelled into a mix of cheers and gasps, the moment vibrating with electricity. This wasn't just a challenge. It was a spectacle, a clash of intellect and ego set against the unforgiving glare of public scrutiny. Trump's smirk was a challenge etched in stone, a gauntlet thrown with the casual cruelty of a man who believed the game was already his dot across the stage. Jasmine Crockett's eyes held steady. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. The cameras caught her stillness, her calm beneath the storm. No tremor of anger, no defensive riposte, just a poised, deliberate silence. Then slowly, a knowing smile curved her lips. This was no ordinary moment of political posturing. It was a test of character, a battle for the soul of leadership itself. Not in this suspended moment, the stakes stretched far beyond words. This was a fight for truth amid noise, for intellect amid chaos. For Jasmine, it was a call to rise, not with bluster, but with unshakable clarity. And as the cameras rolled, the world waited. What would she say next? This challenge would ripple through every corner of the political landscape, redefining power, intelligence, and courage in real. ChatGPT said. The moment Trump's words hit the airwaves, the storm ignited. Social media erupted in a frenzy of hashtags, memes, and heated debates that crossed every political divide. Hashtag IQ Duel trended worldwide within minutes, a digital battlefield where millions weighed in. News anchors dissected the challenge on live television, their voices layered with excitement, skepticism, and anticipation. Cable pundits framed it as more than just a clash of personalities. It was a defining moment in a nation, increasingly fractured by misinformation and tribal loyalty. In the crowded press rooms and behind closed doors in Washington, political strategists scrambled. Trump's base roared with approval, seeing the challenge as yet another display of his unfiltered dominance. Opponents questioned whether Jasmine Crockett, a rising star known for her sharp legal mind and passionate advocacy, would engage at all, or if this was a trap designed to distract from more pressing issues. Yet, across the spectrum, few could ignore the mounting pressure. Jasmine herself became a beacon of composed determination. Interviews with her staff revealed late nights spent preparing, combing through data, fact-checking, and crafting responses that were both razor-sharp and accessible. Unlike the bombastic energy of her opponent, she embodied a strategic calm, focusing on substance rather than spectacle. Her team urged caution but encouraged confidence, reminding her that this duel was as much about standing for principles as it was about winning an argument. The public followed every update like a gripping political thriller. Some saw the duel as a test of raw intellect, others as a symbolic battle between truth and bluster. Amid the noise, Jasmine's measured approach began to win quiet respect. The stage was set not just for a contest of IQs, but for a fight over the very meaning of leadership in turbulent times. And as millions waited, the tension tightened, each second drawing them closer to a confrontation that would echo far beyond the debate stage. Jasmine Crockett sat quietly in her office, the hum of the city outside a distant backdrop to the storm gathering around her. Known for her razor-sharp legal mind and unwavering commitment to justice, she wasn't one to be rattled by grandstanding or empty challenges. Yet this was different. Donald Trump had thrown down the gauntlet publicly, daring her to an IQ duel, a spectacle designed to humiliate or expose weakness. But Jasmine saw it for what it truly was, an opportunity. Her team worked tirelessly, poring over data, legal precedents, and every public record that might fortify her position. They knew this was not just a battle of facts, but a test of composure and intellect under fire. Jasmine drew strength from her background, years of advocating for marginalized communities, navigating complex courtroom battles, and standing firm in the face of opposition. This challenge was a chance to shine a light on truth in an age clouded by misinformation. Unlike Trump's bluster and brash confidence, Jasmine embraced strategic calm. She rehearsed responses that cut through noise with clarity and precision, crafting her message to resonate beyond political lines. Her focus was clear: to hold the spotlight not with theatrics, but with unassailable logic and moral authority. She understood the stakes. This duel was about more than just proving IQ. It was about reclaiming integrity and intellect in public. Discourse. As she prepared, Jasmine felt the weight of history pressing down. This wasn't simply a contest. It was a moment that could redefine what leadership looked like in America. And with every passing hour, the quiet confidence she exuded only sharpened, setting the stage for a confrontation that promised to be as intellectually fierce as it was emotionally charged. The stage was set, a sleek studio bathed in cool lights, cameras rolling, the world watching. Trump strode to the podium with his trademark swagger, eyes gleaming with challenge. His opening salvo was swift and sharp, a barrage of insults and boasts designed to unsettle. "Look, I've built an empire, run a country, and you want to test me? Come on, Congresswoman Crockett. Let's see if you can keep up with the big leagues." His voice carried a mix of arrogance and mockery, each word punctuated by smirks and dismissive gestures. The audience's reaction rippled, some cheering, others bracing for the storm. But Jasmine was undeterred. She stepped forward with measured grace, her gaze steady, voice calm, yet resolute. "This isn't about bravado," she replied, cutting through the noise with a tone that commanded attention. "It's about facts, accountability, and truth. If we're going to have this duel, let it be on the foundation of integrity, not insults." Trump's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of unease as Jasmine's words landed with precision. The debate unfolded like a chess match, each move deliberate and calculated. Trump lobbed rapid-fire claims and provocations, attempting to dominate the narrative with spectacle. Jasmine met each with clear, concise rebuttals, unraveling falsehoods and spotlighting contradictions in his record. The tension escalated as the back and forth intensified. Trump's tone grew sharper, frustration flickering beneath his bravado, while Jasmine's composure remained unshaken. The duel was no longer just a battle of IQs, but a test of resilience and moral clarity. Every word, every glance, every pause carried weight. The world watched, breath held, as two titans clashed, not just for victory, but for the very soul of political discourse. Then came the moment that would change everything. Jasmine paused, eyes narrowing slightly, her voice steady but charged with undeniable authority. "Let me remind everyone while we're playing games with IQ duels. The real question is this: how do your policies affect millions struggling to put food on the table? Facts don't lie." She pulled up a series of statistics, exposing the sharp rise in economic inequality during Trump's tenure, numbers that contradicted his repeated claims of prosperity for all. "Under your administration, the wealthiest thrived while working families were left behind. That is a failure of leadership, not intelligence." The studio fell into a stunned silence. Trump's confident veneer cracked, if only briefly. The cameras caught the flicker of discomfort in his eyes, the tight grip on the podium as his usual quick retorts faltered. Commentators whispered, Viewers gasped. This was no longer a contest of insults. It was a reckoning grounded in hard, unassailable truth. Jasmine pressed on, voice unwavering. Intelligence isn't about empty boasts or flashy headlines. It's about accountability. It's about understanding the consequences of your decisions on real people's lives. Her words struck a chord, echoing beyond the studio walls, resonating with those tired of rhetoric and hungry for substance. In that charged moment, Jasmine didn't just deliver a fact. She dropped a bombshell that shattered the narrative Trump had controlled for years. The duel had shifted irrevocably. The spectacle gave way to gravity, and the question on everyone's lips was no longer who had the higher IQ, but who had the courage to face the truth. Trump's composure faltered as the weight of Jasmine's words settled over the room. His usual smirk tightened into a thin line, eyes darting as he searched for footing in a shifting battleground. "That's not true," he barked, voice rising. In defensive desperation, the economy was booming, best numbers ever. "You're twisting facts to fit your narrative." But his words lacked their usual conviction, sounding more like reflex than reason. He launched into a series of rapid denials and deflections, attempting to redirect the conversation back to personal attacks and distractions. Look at her record nothing but political theater. She's all talk, no results. Yet even his supporters could sense the strain behind the bluster, the cracks beginning to show beneath the bravado. Jasmine held firm, eyes locked on him with steady resolve. She refused to be baited into a shouting match, instead letting her silence speak volumes. Every faltering rebuttal from Trump deepened the fissures in his argument. The atmosphere thickened with tension as viewers around the nation sensed the unraveling of a facade. The duel's momentum shifted palpably. Where Trump had wielded confidence as a weapon, now it seemed a fragile shield against mounting facts. Jasmine's calm strength became a beacon amid chaos, exposing the emptiness behind bluster. The crowd, both in the studio and online, leaned in, sensing that this was more than a contest of wits. It was a moment of truth breaking through the noise, revealing the real stakes behind the spectacle. Experts and commentators swiftly weighed in, their voices lending gravity and depth to the unfolding duel. Legal analysts dissected Jasmine's points with precision, highlighting the validity of her data and the sharpness of her legal reasoning. Economists confirmed the stark economic disparities she cited, painting a clear picture of widening inequality under Trump's administration. Historians and political scientists framed the challenge as emblematic of a broader struggle between fact-based governance and populist spectacle. On air, voices overlapped. What Jasmine Crockett laid bare is not just a political misstep, but a systemic failure. The statistics she presented are irrefutable. Another chimed in. Trump's inability to counter with substantive evidence exposes a troubling disregard for accountability. These expert testimonies deepened the public's engagement, adding layers to the conflict beyond the heated exchange on stage. They transformed the duel into a discourse on leadership and integrity, resonating with voters across divides. Social media buzzed with clips of analysts backing Jasmine's claims, fueling debates and spreading awareness. Jasmine, watching from behind the scenes, absorbed the support with quiet determination. She understood the power of expert voices in shaping public opinion, reinforcing her message of truth and justice. The duel was no longer just a contest between two individuals. It had become a referendum on values, with each expert opinion amplifying. The stakes as the ideological battle grew more complex, the lines between spectacle and substance blurred, leaving the audience captivated and polarized, yet undeniably engaged in a pivotal moment of political reckoning. Beneath the glare of the cameras and the roar of the crowd, Jasmine's story began to unfold not as a politician's scripted narrative, but as a raw testament to resilience and purpose. She spoke of her upbringing in Dallas, the challenges of navigating a world that often dismissed her because of her race and gender. Her voice carried the weight of lived experience, of barriers broken and battles fought in courtrooms and communities alike. "This isn't just about politics for me," she said quietly during a rare moment offstage. "It's about fighting for the people who feel unheard, unseen. Growing up, I saw families struggle, neighbors left behind. That shapes every choice I make." Her personal journey humanized the duel, adding an emotional depth that cut through partisan noise. The contrast with Trump's persona was stark. His image of inherited privilege and entitlement versus Jasmine's narrative of hard-won progress and unyielding commitment. The audience sensed something profound, a clash, not just of ideas, but of identities and values. As she stood firm in the face of relentless attacks, Jasmine embodied the hopes of many who longed for leadership rooted in empathy and justice. Her story became a beacon, reminding viewers that beyond politics, this was a fight for dignity and recognition. The duel, once a mere spectacle, now carried the weight of history and the promise of change. In those moments, the intellectual battle took on a deeply human dimension, one where courage, conviction, and the strength of one woman's voice could resonate across a nation hungry for truth. At the heart of the duel lay a profound ideological clash, one that transcended personal rivalry to expose a nation divided. Jasmine spoke not just with facts, but with a vision, one rooted in principled leadership, social equity, and the belief that government should serve its people, especially the marginalized. Her words resonated as a call to restore dignity and fairness in a system too often skewed by power and privilege. Trump, in contrast, doubled down on populist rhetoric, framing himself as the champion of the silent majority against what he painted as an out-of-touch elite. His appeals to loyalty and identity sought to rally his base, even as the duel exposed contradictions in his record and rhetoric. The tension between their worldviews crackled like electricity, between a future defined by justice and one clinging to division. Their exchanges cut deep, revealing the core of America's fractured political landscape. Jasmine's measured arguments challenged entrenched narratives, demanding accountability and reform. Trump's defiant retorts sought to maintain his grip on a polarized electorate, weaponizing grievance and spectacle. This ideological war was not confined to the stage. It rippled through communities, media, and minds across the country. The duel became a mirror, reflecting broader struggles over truth, power, and identity. Viewers found themselves caught in a fierce debate, not only about IQ, but about what kind of nation they wanted to be. In this charged atmosphere, the duel transcended mere contest. It became a battle for America's soul, with each word carrying the weight of history and hope. The final moments crackled with raw intensity as Trump launched his last desperate assault. His voice thundered through the studio, a storm of accusations and fiery rhetoric aimed at shaking Jasmine's resolve. "You're just another politician playing games," he spat, "trying to ride a wave of lies and fake facts. I built this country's economy, and you don't have the spine to admit it." But Jasmine stood unyielding, her gaze steady as she delivered her closing words with quiet but fierce conviction. Building a country isn't about personal glory or empty boasts. It's about lifting every citizen, ensuring justice and truth guide our path forward. The spine of leadership is integrity, something you've consistently failed to show. The room seemed to hold its breath. The clash of personalities, ideologies, and truths reached a crescendo, a moment where the duel transcended spectacle and became a reckoning. Trump's bravado clashed with Jasmine's moral clarity, and for a fleeting moment, the nation watched as power and principle collided in full view. As the final words hung in the air, The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. This wasn't just the end of a debate. It was the culmination of a battle fought on intellect, character, and vision. The world waited, suspended, to see which truth would resonate and what legacy would endure. Asterisk, the room had fallen into a heavy, almost reverent silence. The weight of Jasmine's final words hung in the air, thick and potent, a challenge that reverberated far beyond the glare of the cameras. For days afterward, the world seemed to pulse with the echoes of that duel, a moment when raw ambition collided with steady integrity, and the outcome was less about scores or trophies, more about truth reclaimed. Media outlets scrambled to capture the moment's significance. Headlines blazed across newspapers and websites. Jasmine Crockett's Bombshell shakes Trump's legacy. The IQ duel that transformed a political landscape. Truth versus bravado. A duel for the ages. Social media exploded with reaction videos, clips of Jasmine's poised confidence, and debates dissecting every word, every gesture. The hashtag EQ duel had morphed into a symbol of something larger, a movement demanding accountability and substance in leadership. For many, Jasmine's victory was deeply symbolic. Here was a young black woman, rising from communities long marginalized, standing toe-to-toe with a former president known for his unyielding dominance and bombastic style, and not only holding her ground, but toppling the narrative he had so carefully crafted. It was a moment of poetic justice, a turning of the tide in a country still grappling with issues of race, power, and truth. Political commentators, once skeptical, found themselves re-evaluating the stakes of this confrontation. This duel, one analyst observed, was never really about an IQ contest. It was about the kind of leadership America needs. The courage to face uncomfortable truths, the humility to listen, and the intellect to lead with justice. Jasmine Crockett reminded us of that. Across the nation, grassroots movements took inspiration. Activists saw in Jasmine's performance not just a win for one person, but a victory for the ideals they fought for daily: equity, transparency, and dignity. Town halls, rallies, and online forums buzzed with renewed energy, fueled by the duel's aftermath. For many voters, the event crystallized a crucial choice: to endorse spectacle and division, or to demand leadership anchored in knowledge and empathy. Meanwhile, Trump's camp grappled with the fallout. Internally, advisors debated how to reclaim lost ground, yet publicly, the former president doubled down on defiant rhetoric. His rallies still drew fervent crowds, his loyal base unshaken. But cracks in the armor where visible poll numbers showed erosion, and media narratives began shifting. What had once been unassailable bluster was now questioned under the harsh light of Jasmine's unyielding scrutiny. In quiet moments, political insiders whispered about the duel's lasting impact. "It's a watershed moment," said a seasoned strategist. "This changed the game. It showed that raw power and bravado aren't enough anymore. The public is craving authenticity and intellect." Jasmine's victory isn't just political, it's cultural. The duel's ripple effects extended even further. Educational institutions saw a surge in interest around critical thinking and civic engagement. Students debated the contest's implications, inspired by Jasmine's example to challenge narratives and seek truth. The media landscape shifted too, with news outlets recommitting to fact-based reporting amid a climate often saturated by misinformation. Yet, amid the celebration, Jasmine remained grounded. In interviews, she spoke not of triumph, but of responsibility. "This moment isn't about me," she insisted. "It's about all of us, about holding power accountable and ensuring that truth guides our nation's future. We have a long road ahead, but today we took a step forward." Her humility and focus only deepened the public's respect. reinforcing the narrative of a leader committed not to personal glory, but to collective progress. As the weeks passed, Jasmine continued to advocate fiercely in Congress, translating the energy of the duel into tangible efforts for reform and justice. The cultural shift sparked by the duel also reverberated within the political establishment. Lawmakers who had previously avoided confrontations found renewed courage to challenge misinformation and demand transparency. Bipartisan dialogues emerged, however tentative, signaling a potential thaw in a polarized climate. The duel had illuminated the power of one voice to inspire change, to challenge entrenched power, and to elevate the discourse. It underscored that leadership grounded in intellect and integrity could captivate and unite in ways spectacle never could. As the nation reflected on this defining chapter, many recognized it as a turning point, a moment when courage overcame cynicism and truth triumphed over spectacle. Jasmine Crockett's Bombshell was more than a momentary victory. It was a beacon lighting the path toward a more just and thoughtful future. And while the political battles would undoubtedly continue, the duel had irrevocably reshaped the terrain. It reminded a divided country that, in the end, ideas grounded in honesty and courage have the power to dismantle even the most formidable facades. The duel's echoes did not fade with the cameras turning off or the headlines cooling. They rippled onward, shaping the political landscape and cultural dialogue for months to come. Jasmine Crockett emerged from the confrontation not merely as a victor in a televised contest, but as a force redefining what leadership looked like in America's fractious era. Her poised intellect and unwavering moral clarity resonated deeply, propelling her into the national spotlight as a symbol of resilience, truth, and progress. As the weeks unfolded, Jasmine's influence grew beyond the duel's immediate spectacle. She garnered increased support within Congress, where allies rallied behind her calls for accountability, justice reform, and economic equity. Lawmakers who had once viewed her as a rising but untested figure now saw a leader capable of challenging entrenched power. Her speeches became touchstones for principled leadership, blending legal expertise with heartfelt advocacy from marginalized communities. Meanwhile, Donald Trump found himself navigating a more complicated political terrain. The duel exposed vulnerabilities that opponents seized on, and though his base remained fiercely loyal, cracks appeared in his previously unassailable public persona. Strategists debated recalibrating his approach, but the challenge of overcoming the narrative Jasmine had shaped proved daunting. For many voters, the duel crystallized doubts about his legacy and raised questions about the future direction of the conservative movement he embodied. Beyond politics, the duel's cultural impact was profound. It reignited nationwide conversations about the value of critical thinking, the importance of fact-based leadership, and the necessity of confronting misinformation head-on. Schools and universities incorporated discussions about the duel into curricula focused on civic engagement, ethics, and media literacy. Citizens across the country found themselves more engaged, questioning, and demanding of their leaders. Jasmine's journey after the duel was marked by relentless advocacy and steadfast commitment. She used her elevated platform to champion legislation, addressing systemic inequities, spotlighting the very issues she raised during the contest. Her approach blended empathy with rigor, inspiring a new generation to believe that meaningful change was possible through knowledge and courage. The duel also shifted how political battles were fought in the digital age. Campaigns adapted, recognizing that substance could cut through the noise and that voters craved authenticity over spectacle. Media outlets reconsidered their role, grappling with the responsibility to elevate facts rather than feed partisan frenzy. As the nation grappled with its challenges, the duel served as a reminder that democracy depended not only on who held power, but on the ideas and integrity that shaped governance. It underscored the enduring truth that leadership was a sacred trust won, earned through wisdom, honesty, and an unwavering commitment to the public good. Looking ahead, Jasmine Crockett's legacy from the Duel promised to influence politics for years to come. Her example challenged politicians to rise above division and posturing, to embrace accountability and intellect as foundations for progress. For the American people, the Duel was more than a dramatic showdown. It was a clarion call to engage, to question, and to believe in the power of truth. And as the political landscape continued to evolve, one thing remained clear. The Duel had shifted the course of history, opening a door to a future where courage and clarity might finally guide the nation through its most profound trials. The aftermath of the Duel reverberated far beyond the halls of power and the spotlight of national media. It sparked a cultural awakening that touched the very fabric of American society, reminding citizens that the battle for truth and integrity was not confined to politicians or courtrooms, but lived within everyday conversations and choices. Across cities and towns, community leaders seized on Jasmine Crockett's example to inspire renewed civic engagement. Town halls filled with residents eager to discuss issues that mattered: economic inequality, justice reform, education, and the role of honesty in public discourse. The Duel had galvanized a collective demand for leaders who embodied not just charisma, but accountability and intellect. Schools and universities integrated the Duel's lessons into curricula, encouraging students to sharpen critical thinking skills and understand the power of well-founded argumentation. Professors used the event as a case study in media literacy, ethics, and political science, sparking debates that transcended classroom walls. Youth movements found in Jasmine's rise a beacon of possibility, empowering young people to believe their voices could shape the future. In the media landscape, the Duel forced a reckoning. News organizations confronted the challenge of balancing sensationalism with responsibility, recognizing that audiences craved substance over spectacle. Some outlets revamped fact-checking departments and invested in more nuanced political analysis, while others doubled down on partisan coverage, intensifying the divide. The Duel became a litmus test for journalistic integrity in an era awash with misinformation. Social media platforms became battlegrounds of a different kind, as users rallied around hashtags promoting truth, accountability, and civic duty. Yet, the Duel also exposed the dangers of echo chambers and misinformation, prompting conversations about digital literacy and the need for critical evaluation of online content. For Jasmine, the cultural shift was both inspiring and sobering. She embraced the responsibility of being a symbol, knowing the path forward required not just winning battles of words, but sustaining movements rooted in justice and empathy. She traveled extensively, speaking at community centers, universities, and forums, reminding audiences that democracy thrived when citizens demanded more from their leaders and from themselves. The Duel's cultural impact underscored a timeless truth that progress depended on the collective will to seek knowledge, embrace complexity, and act with integrity. It was a call to remember that democracy is not a spectator sport, but a shared endeavor requiring courage and commitment from every individual. As America grappled with its challenges, the Duel remained a touchstone, a vivid reminder that even in the darkest moments, clarity and courage could illuminate a path forward. Jasmine Crockett's victory was not merely political. It was cultural, a beacon signaling the power of truth to transcend division and inspire hope. The Duel's reverberations reached beyond political arenas and cultural discourse, transforming how citizens engaged with their government and with one another. It ignited a nationwide conversation about the very nature of leadership, accountability, and the role each person plays in shaping democracy's future. In communities across the country, ordinary Americans found themselves more invested than ever in the political process. Voter registration surged as people recognized the stakes were higher than partisan loyalty. They were deciding on the kind of leaders who would steer the nation through turbulent times. Grassroots organizations grew stronger, mobilizing volunteers and fostering dialogue focused on shared values rather than division. Jasmine Crockett's example became a blueprint for effective leadership, a blend of intellect, empathy, and unwavering commitment to truth. She emphasized the importance of listening to diverse voices and bridging divides, reminding constituents that democracy thrived on inclusion and respect. Her legislative efforts reflected this ethos, prioritizing policies that aimed to heal fractures and build consensus. At the same time, the duel exposed deep societal fissures that could not be ignored. The stark contrast between Trump's populist appeals and Jasmine's principled stance illuminated the challenges of overcoming entrenched polarization. Yet, amidst the discord, the duel planted seeds of possibility, proof that reasoned dialogue and moral clarity could break through the cacophony. Media and educational institutions took on renewed responsibility, expanding efforts to foster critical thinking and civic education. The duel's lessons were incorporated into classrooms, public forums, and media literacy campaigns, equipping citizens to navigate an increasingly complex information landscape. Social media users began championing digital civility, pushing back against misinformation and harassment. Movements advocating for respectful, informed discourse gained momentum, inspired by the duel's demonstration of power, wielded through facts and courage rather than spectacle. The duel also inspired a new generation of leaders, diverse, informed, and driven by purpose. Young activists and politicians cited Jasmine's example as motivation to enter public service, determined to uphold the standards she set. As the nation continued its journey, the duel remained a guiding star, a reminder that democracy demands more than noise. It requires thoughtful engagement, courage to confront uncomfortable truths, and an enduring commitment to justice. In this evolving landscape, Jasmine Crockett's story stood as a testament to the transformative power of intellect and integrity, a legacy urging all Americans to rise above division and work together for a more equitable, hopeful future. The duel between Jasmine Crockett and Donald Trump wasn't just a fleeting spectacle. It became a defining chapter in America's political and cultural history. As the dust settled, it was clear that this clash of intellect, values, and vision had reshaped the national conversation, leaving an indelible mark on how leadership is understood and practiced. For Jasmine, the duel marked the beginning of a new era. Her poise under pressure and commitment to truth elevated her beyond the role of a rising politician to a symbol of hope and possibility. She continued to champion policies aimed at economic justice, civil rights, and governmental transparency, her voice growing stronger in Congress and across the country. Her example inspired countless individuals, especially young women and people of color, to engage in civic life, emboldened by the belief that change was achievable. Donald Trump's legacy, once seemingly unshakable, faced renewed scrutiny. The duel exposed fractures in his narrative and challenged supporters to reconsider the nature of leadership they demanded. Though his influence persisted, the event marked a turning point that altered public perceptions and political calculations. Broader cultural impact of the duel echoed in classrooms, newsrooms, and community halls. It sparked a renewed commitment to critical thinking, media literacy, and respectful discourse, tools essential for navigating the complexities of modern democracy. Civic engagement rose as voters sought leaders who valued integrity over theatrics, substance over spectacle. Yet the duel also illuminated ongoing challenges: polarization, misinformation, and the struggle to balance passion with reason. It reminded the nation that democracy is fragile and requires constant vigilance, courage, and collective effort. Ultimately, the duel served as a powerful reminder that true leadership is more than charisma or bravado. It is the courage to face truth, the wisdom to listen, and the strength to act with justice in heart and mind. Jasmine Crockett's victory was not an end, but a call to action for all Americans to strive for a democracy that honors knowledge, empathy, and hope. As the country looked forward, the Duel's legacy endured a beacon guiding future generations toward a political landscape where intellect and integrity are the greatest powers of all. Asterisk, as the Duel's aftershocks rippled across the nation, the spotlight inevitably turned inward toward the very nature of political discourse and the responsibilities of both leaders and citizens in a democracy under strain. The event forced a collective reckoning with uncomfortable truths about how power was wielded and challenged assumptions about what constituted effective leadership in a hyper-polarized era. For Jasmine Crockett, this introspection was not abstract, but deeply personal. She had stepped into the spotlight not merely as a contender in a public contest, but as a symbol of what leadership rooted in intellect and empathy could achieve. The Duel had elevated her voice, but with that elevation came weighty expectations. She felt the pulse of a nation hungry for change and the profound responsibility to live up to the moment. Behind closed doors, Jasmine and her team mapped out a vision that extended far beyond headlines and sound bites. Their mission was clear: to transform the energy of the Duel into sustained momentum for policy reform, community engagement, and renewed faith in governance. They understood that winning a duel of words was just the beginning. Real change demanded relentless work in legislative chambers, public forums, and grassroots movements. In town halls across the country, Jasmine spoke not as a distant politician, but as a relatable figure, one who had faced systemic barriers and refused to be silenced. Her authenticity resonated, bridging divides that often seemed insurmountable. She urged citizens to move beyond cynicism and apathy, reminding them that democracy thrived when people actively participated, questioned, and held leaders accountable. The Duel had also sparked a cultural shift within political circles. Colleagues who once saw the contest as mere spectacle now recognized it as a watershed moment, proof that substance, courage, and clear-eyed intellect could capture the public's imagination. Some began to embrace a more collaborative approach, seeking common ground amidst ideological battles. Yet the path ahead was far from smooth. The Duel had exposed deep fissures: polarization, misinformation, and entrenched interests that resisted change. Jasmine confronted these headwinds with the same calm determination that had defined her public challenge. She knew that transformation would be incremental, requiring patience and persistence. The media landscape, too, was evolving. News organizations wrestled with their role in shaping narratives, striving to balance speed with accuracy and spectacle with substance. The Duel became a case study in journalistic responsibility, underscoring the need for platforms that elevate truth and encourage meaningful dialogue. Social media platforms, often battlegrounds for misinformation and vitriol, saw a growing movement of users advocating for digital literacy and respectful discourse. Inspired by Jasmine's example, communities mobilized to counteract polarization with empathy and fact-based conversation. Educational institutions embraced the Duel's lessons, integrating its themes into curricula that emphasized critical thinking, civic engagement, and ethical leadership. A new generation of students found inspiration in Jasmine's story, fueling ambitions to enter public service with a commitment to integrity. As the nation continued to grapple with complex challenges, from economic inequality to systemic injustice, the Duel's legacy served as a guiding light. It reminded Americans that democracy's strength lay not in spectacle or division, but in the collective courage to seek truth and build bridges. For Jasmine Crockett, the Duel was a defining moment, but also a catalyst for ongoing work. Her journey embodied the enduring struggle to align power with principle, intellect with empathy, and leadership with justice. And as the country looked forward, that struggle remained the true test, one that demanded every citizen's voice and every leader's integrity. The duel had shifted the conversation, but the real battle for America's future was just beginning. Asterisk. The duel between Jasmine Crockett and Donald Trump had become a defining lens through which America saw its own reflection, both its fractures and its hopes. As the immediate intensity faded, the deeper consequences began to unfold, revealing the long-term challenges and possibilities facing a nation at a crossroads. In the months following the confrontation, Jasmine doubled down on her efforts to translate the momentum into meaningful change. She spearheaded legislative initiatives focused on economic justice, criminal justice reform, and government transparency. Her speeches carried the same clarity and conviction that had captivated millions during the duel, now infused with detailed policy proposals and a call for bipartisan collaboration. But progress came hard. The political landscape remained deeply divided, with entrenched interests resisting reform and partisan gridlock often stalling even the most urgent measures. Jasmine confronted these obstacles not with despair, but with steadfast resolve, knowing that systemic change rarely happens overnight. Behind the scenes, her office became a hub of relentless activity, meetings with advocates, strategizing sessions with allies, and outreach to communities whose voices had long been marginalized. Jasmine understood that real leadership required bridging divides, building coalitions, and listening as much as speaking. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's response to the duel's fallout revealed the enduring tensions shaping American politics. Though his base remained loyal, his influence began to wane in certain circles, as critics highlighted the inconsistencies and failures exposed during the confrontation. Trump's subsequent campaigns leaned heavily on rhetoric that doubled down on division and grievance, underscoring the polarized environment Jasmine sought to transcend. The duel's cultural impact continued to ripple outward. Educational programs expanded to include lessons on media literacy, critical thinking, and civic responsibility, inspired by the clarity and courage Jasmine had displayed. Public forums and community discussions blossomed, fueled by a renewed commitment to honest dialogue and informed engagement. Yet, the duel also exposed the fragility of democratic discourse in the digital age. Misinformation, echo chambers, and online hostility remained formidable challenges, demanding vigilance from both leaders and citizens. Jasmine advocated fiercely for reforms to promote transparency and accountability in social media platforms, emphasizing that a healthy democracy depended on an informed electorate. The public response to Jasmine's continued advocacy was mixed, but hopeful. Many voters found renewed inspiration in her message and leadership style, while others remained skeptical, caught in the crosscurrents of partisan loyalty. The duel had illuminated the deep divides, but it also planted seeds for potential healing. In conversations with constituents, Jasmine emphasized the power of unity without uniformity, the idea that America's strength lay in its diversity and its ability to find common ground amid disagreement. "We may not agree on everything," she often said, "but we must always agree on the value of truth, respect, and justice." As the years unfolded, the duel came to be seen not as an isolated spectacle, but as a catalyst for a broader transformation in American political culture. It challenged leaders to rise above spectacle and division, to embrace intellect and empathy as foundations for governance. For Jasmine Crockett, the journey was far from over. The duel had opened doors and shifted narratives, but the work of building a more just and informed society required sustained effort and collective courage. Her story became a touchstone for future leaders, proof that integrity and intellect could break through even the most entrenched power structures, and that democracy thrived when citizens demanded more. As the nation continued to grapple with its challenges, the duel's legacy remained a beacon, a reminder that true leadership is a marathon, not a sprint, and that progress, however slow, is always possible when guided by courage and conviction. The duel between Jasmine Crockett and Donald Trump had transcended the confines of politics, becoming a symbol of the broader struggle for America's soul. As the dust settled, the nation found itself grappling not only with the immediate aftermath, but with the deeper implications for its democratic fabric. Jasmine's victory was more than a personal triumph. It was a catalyst for a renewed focus on leadership defined by intellect, empathy, and accountability. Her example inspired countless individuals, especially those from historically marginalized communities, to believe that their voices mattered and that the halls of power were not beyond reach. Yet the path forward was fraught with challenges. Polarization remained deeply entrenched, and misinformation continued to undermine public trust. Jasmine confronted these realities head-on, advocating for systemic reforms aimed at strengthening democratic institutions and promoting transparency. She championed legislation designed to protect voting rights, regulate social media platforms, and enhance civic education. In congressional hearings, Jasmine's voice resonated with clarity and urgency. She articulated the stakes with precision. Democracy was fragile, and its survival depended on an informed and engaged citizenry. We cannot afford to be complacent, she warned. The integrity of our institutions is the foundation of our freedom. The duel's cultural resonance spurred widespread civic engagement. Town halls, community forums, and grassroots movements flourished, fueled by the momentum Jasmine helped ignite. Citizens across political divides found themselves drawn into conversations about shared values, governance, and the future of the Republic. At the same time, the duel exposed the limits of spectacle in political discourse. Audiences began demanding substance over style, pushing leaders to prioritize facts and empathy over bombast and division. Jasmine's approach became a blueprint for a new generation of politicians, committed to restoring trust through transparency and respect. The media landscape also evolved. Journalists and news organizations increasingly embraced their role as watchdogs and educators, striving to provide nuanced coverage that cut through partisan noise. Fact-checking initiatives expanded, and efforts to combat misinformation gained traction. Social media platforms faced mounting pressure to implement reforms, addressing the spread of false information and online harassment. Jasmine advocated for policies that balanced free expression with responsibility, emphasizing the need for digital literacy campaigns to empower users to critically assess the content they encountered. Education systems integrated lessons from the duel into civics and media literacy curricula, equipping students with tools to navigate a complex information environment. The event became a case study in leadership, ethics, and the power of informed discourse. Through it all, Jasmine remained a steadfast advocate for justice and truth. She continued to challenge entrenched power structures, pushing for policies that addressed economic inequality, criminal justice reform, and voting rights. Her leadership style, marked by intellectual rigor and empathetic engagement, set a new standard. The duel's legacy endured as a reminder that democracy is an ongoing project, requiring vigilance, courage, and collective action. It underscored the vital role of leaders who prioritize truth and the courage of citizens who demanded. As America moved forward, the lessons of the duel served as a beacon illuminating a path toward a more just, informed, and united future. Jasmine Crockett's courage and clarity became emblematic of the potential for change. When intellect meets integrity, the battle for America's soul was far from over, but the duel had marked a turning point, a moment when truth and courage pushed back against division and spectacle, rekindling hope in the power of democracy. The duel's impact extended deep into the heart of America's political discourse, challenging citizens and leaders alike to reconsider the meaning of power and responsibility. Jasmine Crockett's unwavering stand against spectacle and misinformation ignited a movement toward transparency and accountability that transcended partisan lines. As Jasmine traveled the country, speaking at universities, community centers, and civic forums, she encountered a nation hungry for leaders who spoke truth to power. Her message resonated particularly with young people and marginalized communities who had long felt excluded from political decision-making. They saw in her a beacon of hope, a leader who combined intellect with empathy and who was unafraid to challenge entrenched interests. Meanwhile, the political establishment grappled with the duel's aftermath. Some officials embraced the call for reform, recognizing that the electorate demanded more substance and integrity. Others doubled down on divisive rhetoric, seeking to maintain influence through spectacle rather than solutions. This tension underscored the ongoing struggle to redefine political leadership in a fractured era. Jasmine's legislative efforts reflected this broader battle. She championed bills aimed at closing economic gaps, reforming criminal justice, and protecting voting rights issues at the core of the duel's themes. Each victory was hard-won, tempered by opposition from powerful interests resistant to change. But Jasmine's determination never wavered. The duel also transformed the media landscape. News organizations invested more in investigative journalism and fact-checking, striving to provide audiences with accurate information amid the noise of social media and partisan spin. Public demand for accountability led to new standards in political reporting, with greater scrutiny of claims and rhetoric. Social media platforms faced mounting pressure to address misinformation and toxic discourse. Jasmine advocated for balanced approaches that protected free speech while promoting responsible content moderation. Digital literacy campaigns gained traction, empowering users to critically evaluate the information they consumed. Education became a focal point in the duel's legacy. Schools integrated discussions about media literacy, critical thinking, and civic engagement into curricula, inspired by the duel's demonstration of informed debate. Students learned not only about facts, but also about the importance of respectful dialogue and active citizenship. Throughout these changes, Jasmine remained a steadfast symbol of courage and clarity. Her leadership inspired a new generation to believe that meaningful political change was possible when grounded in truth and integrity. She emphasized the collective power of citizens to hold leaders accountable and to demand a democracy that truly serves all. The duel had revealed the fragility of American democracy, but also its resilience. It showed that while division and misinformation posed real threats, the commitment of determined individuals and engaged communities could push the nation toward a better path. As Jasmine reflected on the journey, she recognized that the duel was not an endpoint, but a catalyst, a call to ongoing action. The work of building a just, informed, and united society required sustained effort and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. In this evolving political landscape, the duel stood as a testament to the power of intellect, empathy, and moral clarity. It reminded America that true leadership is defined not by bluster or spectacle, but by the courage to speak truth and the commitment to justice. The legacy of the duel endured as a beacon of hope, a challenge to all citizens to engage thoughtfully, act courageously, and believe in the possibility of progress. Jasmine Crockett's story became a touchstone, inspiring future leaders to rise above division and lead with integrity. And as the nation continued its journey, the lessons of the duel remained ever relevant, a guiding light in the ongoing quest to build a democracy worthy of its promise. As the years passed, the duel between Jasmine Crockett and Donald Trump became more than just a moment in political theater. It evolved into a defining symbol of America's ongoing struggle to reconcile truth with power. What began as a fiery contest of wills and intellect had blossomed into a broader movement, one that challenged the very foundations of leadership and civic engagement. Jasmine's steadfast commitment to justice, accountability, and empathy reshaped expectations for what public service could and should be. Her journey inspired not only politicians, but everyday citizens who saw in her an embodiment of courage and clarity. She proved that leadership was not about theatrics or empty promises, but about listening, learning, and fighting tirelessly for the common good. Her influence extended beyond legislation. Jasmine became a mentor to a new generation of leaders, encouraging them to embrace integrity and intellectual rigor as tools for change. She championed programs to cultivate critical thinking and civic participation, emphasizing that democracy thrived when its citizens were informed and engaged. The Duel also left an indelible mark on the political landscape. It challenged parties to reconsider strategies, moving away from divisive spectacle toward substance and collaboration. While polarization remained, the conversation shifted. Audiences demanded accountability and truth, pushing politicians to meet a higher standard. Donald Trump's legacy, too, was forever altered. The Duel exposed cracks in his narrative, forcing supporters and critics alike to grapple with the complex realities behind his rise and fall. His influence persisted, but the Duel had sown seeds of skepticism and reflection that would shape future political debates. Culturally, the Duel sparked a renaissance of civic consciousness. Media outlets, educational institutions, and grassroots organizations embraced their roles in fostering an informed and empathetic public. The event became a case study in resilience, the power of a single moment to ignite a national reckoning. For Jasmine Crockett, the Duel was both a pinnacle and a beginning. It marked her emergence as a transformative leader and set a precedent for how courage and intellect could confront entrenched power. Yet she remained grounded, ever mindful that true change required perseverance beyond any single victory. As she often reflected in speeches and interviews, leadership is a journey, not a destination. It demands humility, conviction, and a relentless pursuit of justice. Her words resonated deeply, encapsulating the Duel's enduring message. The nation, still navigating challenges old and new, carried forward the Duel's legacy, a reminder that democracy is fragile but resilient, imperfect but capable of renewal. It underscored that the strength of a nation lies not in its leaders alone, but in the courage and integrity of its people. And so, as America faced its future, the Duel's story remained a beacon, a testament to the enduring power of truth, the necessity of empathy, and the unyielding hope that drives a nation toward justice. Jasmine Crockett's triumph was more than a moment. It was a movement, a call to all Americans to engage, to challenge, and to lead with courage and clarity. The Duel had ended, but the fight for America's soul continued, carried forward by those inspired to believe that with intellect and integrity, change was not only possible, but inevitable. The Duel's legacy reverberated through the halls of power and the streets of America, sparking conversations that reached into the heart of what democracy truly demanded. Jasmine Crockett's victory was no mere political win. It was a seismic shift in the nation's collective consciousness, challenging the very way citizens engaged with leadership and truth. In the months following the Duel, Jasmine embarked on a nationwide tour, speaking to packed auditoriums, community centers, and university halls. Her message was consistent and compelling. Democracy requires active participation, intellectual rigor, and moral courage. She urged Americans to move beyond partisan tribalism and embrace a shared commitment to justice and accountability. These engagements illuminated a hunger among the public for leaders who prioritize substance over spectacle. Jasmine's authenticity and intellect struck a chord with a diverse audience, from young activists demanding systemic change to older voters weary of political theater. Her story became a blueprint for leadership grounded in empathy and unwavering commitment to truth. At the same time, The duel influenced political strategy across the spectrum. Campaigns began placing greater emphasis on policy detail and transparent communication. Debates grew more substantive, reflecting a shift in voter expectations. While polarization remained a challenge, the duel had introduced a new standard, one that valued clarity, honesty, and respectful discourse. Jasmine's work in Congress mirrored this ethos. She pushed forward legislation aimed at addressing economic inequality, reforming criminal justice, and protecting voting rights. Her approach was collaborative but firm, navigating the complexities of political compromise without sacrificing core principles. The media landscape, too, evolved. In the duel's wake, news organizations redoubled efforts to combat misinformation and provide nuanced analysis. Fact-checking initiatives expanded, and outlets experimented with new formats to engage viewers in critical thinking and civic education. The duel had underscored the media's vital role as a guardian of truth in a fractured information environment. Social media platforms faced increased scrutiny, with users and regulators alike demanding greater accountability. Jasmine advocated for balanced reforms that protected free expression while curbing the spread of falsehoods and online harassment. Digital literacy campaigns gained momentum, empowering citizens to navigate the digital landscape with discernment. Education became a cornerstone of the duel's lasting impact. Schools incorporated its lessons into civics and media literacy curricula, fostering a generation equipped to engage thoughtfully in democracy. Students studied the duel as a case study in leadership, ethics, and the power of informed debate. Yet, amidst these transformations, challenges persisted. Polarization, misinformation, and institutional distrust remained formidable obstacles. Jasmine confronted these realities with the same resilience that had defined her duel, understanding that progress required perseverance and collective effort. Her journey inspired countless individuals to believe in the possibility of change. She mentored emerging leaders, fostering a new wave of public servants committed to integrity and intellect. The duel had become a catalyst for a broader movement, one that embraced courage, clarity, and compassion.